right. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Elite Physique University. I'm John Gorman, your host. Got Jason Theobald back fresh from a trip down to get some sun. Jason, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing pretty well on this Thursday night. It was 50 here and sunny in Kentucky, which we don't get in January. So nice. It feels a little better.
Yeah, man. How was your trip?
It was awesome. It was what I needed. 75 and sunny. Saw one of my close friends and met his girlfriend and had some other friends join and just good people all abound. And it was good energy and just everything I needed. We got out in the boat, which is really super relaxing. When I got off that, man, I felt like I'd smoked like 10 bowls. It is, man, just super, but like we were just cruising along, looking at, $8 to $65 million properties, just taking in the sun. We got to the beach. We went out each night and ate high dollar dinners and, just enjoyed life, dude. So it was nice.
Yeah, that's good, man. I'm glad to see you do that. I mean, you've worked your ass off to build the empire that you've built. So just to see you go out and be able to relax and enjoy it. And I know that sometimes that's not always the easiest thing for you. I'm kind of the same way. We're both tight asses. So where did you go? What city were you in?
Naples. And it's beautiful. A lot of people think it's just old people, but I'll tell you what, we went out after Cooper's Hawk, which is a winery, real nice restaurant. We went out to the nightlife in Naples, and I was really impressed. Like, it's all condensed into one area, but it was young and old, and there was no masks, and everyone was on the dance floor, like 2 inches from each other. And it was basically like, hey, if you want to live life, come on out. If you don't, stay the fuck home. And that's the way this shit should be.
Yeah.
And it just felt nice to be back to like normal life.
Yeah, man. Speaking of, so we're going to be down in Florida. We've got the Elite Physique University seminar. Tickets are on sale. We've got 3 super VIP tickets left. If you guys buy one of those, you get a nice package of fat muscle supplements, new ethics supplements. You get to train with myself and Jason. And then we have a private Q&A, which will just be 4 super VIPs, me and Jason.
Anything.
Yeah, anything goes. It's, usually lasts an hour or two, but it's very intimate and it's well worth the money. Super VIP tickets are always good. We have 3 of those left. And then we are limited on tickets, Jason, as we both know. So we are going to sell this out just like we did the one in Springfield, but I'm going to link everything in the show notes. You guys can go check it out. Jason, let's talk about our lineup with the things that we're going to talk about, the lectures that we're going to give, because this is something to where, we both charge a decent amount of money to do this stuff on Zoom. This is a great value for a $250 ticket. Talk about your 3 lectures.
Yeah. So I'll be going over some gut health strategies, covering SIBO and covering acid reflux and your general bloat and where it comes from and what you're deficient in. And I will be covering peaking strategies from front loading, back loading, fat loading. I cover it all and give you some insight into different ways you can load and peak clients. I will be discussing thyroid health and what minerals it takes to have good thyroid health. And then I also go over what numbers we like to see on labs while you're reviewing it. So some of those I give online at $500 a piece. So yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a discount, really. And plus, if you don't want to see us old farts, it's just great. You're stuck in a room with 70 to 50 people that are like-minded. It's great to network. You'll come out of there with at least one friend, or else you did something wrong. The training is always electric. We're all, you got 40 to 50 of the people that attend show up at the gym at the same time and fucking train, and you meet more people that way. So I always look forward to it. I think for 250, you really can't go wrong, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's one of those events. I always tell people all the time, if you are a professional and you're a coach and you do this for a living, or you want to do this for a living, I've made so many connections at conferences over the years that I now do business with in some sort of fashion, or I've just learned so much. It's propelled me to the next level. I highly recommend it. So grab a friend, grab some tickets. I'm going to cover, my talk is taking your physique from good to great. And I go over some things that you can really avoid, but some advanced strategies on taking your physique from good to great, or your clients. Metabolic capacity. And I kind of tie that to the hormones issue, calories in, calories out. It's a presentation on how both of those kind of affect things, but I really drive home the issues with the calories in, calories outside, since Jason covers a lot of some of the hormone stuff in his talks. And finally, the other one's a unicorn approach on how to add calories to get someone to drop weight when they're bottomed out. That's a whole protocol. And Jason, what I like about yours, especially the peaking strategies and also the gut health talk, you literally give these protocols. And when they get their presentations and the attachments that I send everybody, they have that stuff saved. I have that stuff saved. I refer back to it. So you guys get these protocols, and like I said, I know it sounds like we're salesmen, and neither one of us are great salesmen, but we're telling you guys for 250, this is fucking money. Like you can't beat it. It's the 27th and 28th of March in Tampa. Fly into Clearwater Airport, the St. Pete area, or wherever, it doesn't matter. We'll have catered lunch. It'll just be a blast. Plus, we're going to record another episode of this podcast live, and that's always fun. I'll never forget that first one we did. It was weird, but it was a blast. So
it was cool. It was cool.
Enough of that, man. Let's do some other housekeeping stuff real quick, and then we're going to get on to this topic. You just released something new with New Ethics. Tell us about it.
So it's biofilm resolve. And, I'm actually glad I get to talk about it a little bit because we get a lot of questions like what's different with Gut Defender. And so I'll give you a quick rundown real fast. When you have basically any infection or bad pathogens in the body, they will form biofilms. And they'll do this even in a cut. Like, so if you have a cut or you had surgery and you get an infection, it's the same thing. Biofilms form. They're all over the body. Well, when you get these bad pathogens that are causing issues in the gut, the opportunistic bacteria, they form biofilms. And what happens is, if you only hit it with, some antifungals or antibacterial type products, you'll kill the ones floating around, but the ones that are compacted, you can't get through it. Well, the biofilm resolve helps basically break down the sludge, and then the Gut Defender can get to it. So it's a 1-2 punch for dealing with things like SIBO and even just, gut dysfunction in the microbiome. So it works really well in conjunction together. And that's a quick rundown of why we did it. If you don't use a biofilm disruptor and you run a SIBO protocol, you got about a 50-50 shot of being successful. So they kind of go hand in hand with our probiotic, which we recommend you adding after 8 weeks of the Gut Defender and the biofilm resolve, and bring in probiotics later and the gourmet greens. And it's a whole system of fixing problems like that.
Perfect. Yep. I'm going to put that in the show notes. All the stuff we talk about will be in the show notes, but if you guys want to check that out, go ahead and head over there and click on that now real quick. And I know this is going to sound like it's a supplement podcast, and it's not, but we just released 3. We released Premium L-glutamine, which is huge for gut health and immunity right now. But this here, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the label. Leslie really knocked it out of the park. We put together, it's called Premium Blended Protein, and we were able to get my manufacturer to drop in small chunks of Reese's peanut butter cups. You can see it there on YouTube. And it's not enough to throw the macro profile off a lot. 1 scoop is 20 protein, less than 2 grams of fat, and 4 carbs. And it's an isolate, concentrate, and micellar casein blend. So it's almost like a meal replacement protein. And you open it up, it sounds like peanut butter cups. There's 6 ingredients, and then you add the peanut butter cups to it. So it's pretty good there. And then finally, man, this is the one I was excited for. We've pushed injectable L-carnitine so much on the show, and I have so many people, probably because most of my folks are natty, and they're still thinking, I just don't want to mess with the injections. So on my end, I came up with this. It's a premium L-carnitine dosed high, 2 grams per serving. There's 100 servings in this tub. Barely any sucralose used at all. It's like a tenth of a Splenda packet in there, but it tastes lights out. You put it in a bottle of water, you can't even tell it's there. And I'm taking 8 grams a day right now and testing that out. I'm not going to change anything with diet. Just want to see how things work. And so far I'm down 2.5, almost 3 pounds, but we'll see. Body is a little bit warmer. I can feel that. So we'll see. If you guys don't want to mess with the injections, nothing's ever going to beat that for sure. But if you want to try this, it's there in the show notes, man. So enough about business. Let's talk about the topic today. So this is one that, I did this back in 2016 on the TNT podcast, and it was probably one of our more popular episodes we did. And I thought, you know what, we can even add to this. We can even take it a little bit further, because we can also add the super supplement side of this to the equation. So this is everything about the scale weight that goes up and why it's not always necessarily fat gain, and how to look at it from a coaching perspective. So how are you, man? Are you still getting a lot of clients where you have to explain this a lot? I know I constantly do. So what's it look like on your end when the scale's kind of playing games?
I had it today. Someone checked in. They didn't lose, but it stayed the same, and they're in a deficit. And they even said, "But I feel tighter, and my clothes feel better. But I'm really pissed at the scale. I'm hungry, and it should have went down." And so I had a whole discussion that says, "Hey, whoa, you're leaner. You're either building muscle because you were off. She had some surgeries, or something else affected weight, which we're going to go into today. But we got to go by how your clothes fit and how the mirror looks. And if you're feeling tighter, let's not worry about it." And she wrote back and said, "Oh, I was just kind of figure of speech. I get it, but it said I'm pissed at the scale." So I went into my diatribe of why she didn't need to be pissed or upset. So I get that a lot. I get it too when I'm dealing with a lot of the hormonal cases. Their weight jumps around a good bit, and there's a lot of things going on there that can cause different things with digestion, and I'm feeding them up and resting them more. But so yeah, I get it a lot. I have to put the fires out. So yeah, it's still an issue.
Well, this podcast is going to serve two episodes. One, it's going to help our listeners, but two, every time my clients email me and they're like, "Hey," and I have to explain it, I'm just going to link this podcast. So for those of you listening, because I sent you here and you're my client, you're welcome. But no, that this will be a good show. I think it's important too for our coaches and trainers that are listening to the show. You really have to start to understand this. And it took me a little while at first. I don't know about you, Jason, but I would see the scale fluctuate. And I always took learning points. Usually it was from other coaches I was working with. I remember, one of the ones we're going to get to with inflammation, I Skip Hill kind of learned a lot about that, passed it on to me because I was jumping around all over the place. So I've learned a lot of this from other coaches, but then as time went on, you just get to see so much of this in the trenches. I think this is going to be a good way for people to fast track if they don't have that experience. They're going to be able to reference this and be like, "Hey, it's because of X, Y, Z." So let's talk about how you have your clients. I know we're both the same, how we have them weigh on the scale. What are your recommendations? I know I always tell my clients first thing in the morning, get up, go to the bathroom, weigh naked or weigh in your underwear, just the same thing every single day. What are you doing with your clients? You doing anything different? You having them weigh every day?
The ones who can handle it, yes. But if I sense or get any pushback where it's affecting mentally, then I will say once a week. And I even have probably about 8 that can't weigh at all. So then I make sure that pictures are same spot, same light, same time, same pose, so that I can really compare what's going on. So, if you get a client like that who just can't mentally handle it, I don't force them because I don't want to cause issues, but I really enforce that pics got to be consistent or else it's going to be really difficult to gauge improvement or not.
Yeah, that was something else that reminds me. I had a client email me, I think it was Monday, and she just kept worrying about the scale because it was up like 1 pound in like 6 weeks, right? And she just kept worrying about it, but her pictures look better. And I said, "Hey, listen, you're so stressed." She was at tears, she said in her email. And I said, "You know what? If we weren't even checking the scale and just looking at pictures, you'd be happy because you're making progress." And then I had a client earlier this year. She's gained 6 pounds and she was real low calorie when she started, some metabolic compensation issues. She went from 123 to 129 and she looked better. But man, that scale was fucking her up. All she wanted to do is she kept asking me, "When can I diet? When can I diet?" Yeah. I said, "Hey, you came to me low calorie. Like, I need you 6 months so I can fix this." And I was like, "But you look better." So a lot of this is how people look at it. It is good to hear that you do give them the option. I like to ask my clients to weigh. I've got an Excel spreadsheet, weigh every day, and it averages out per week. And I try and teach them to look at the average per week. But you're right. I think sometimes just using pictures, I need to probably do that a little bit more with my clients that struggle.
It helps their mental, and once you've trained your eye, which you've been at this long as I have almost, you can get it. You just got to make sure that they really give you good picks.
Yeah. Let's talk about a couple of things when it comes to the scale, and then we're going to get into things that kind of affect it. For people that are prepping and they tell you, "Hey, Jason, I've got to travel." What do you tell them to do with the scale? You tell them take it with you. You tell them to find something there. I know the answer.
If they're not in prep, I don't need the scale. I mean, I don't take it on vacation. So I just tell them, look, you're on vacation. If you want to check in. If not, eat good all week, go out, but eat sensible. The goal is not to gain weight. That's your goal for the week. I don't care if we're in a cut and you go on vacation. I don't care if you drop. Just try not to come back gaining a ton. If they're in prep, yeah, take the scale. I mean, everything then is, got to be consistent. I need the data. And they need to be on their game. So it just depends on where they're at in their programming and their situation basically.
Yeah, I've got clients too. I've had people before, like a guy goes and stays with his girlfriend on the weekend or something like that. And he's like, hey, and I'll notice his weight's way up on the weekend. He's like, dude, my diet's perfect. And they never tell me about the scale. I figured out I have to ask. I'm like, are you using a different scale? Oh yeah, I was at my girlfriend's house weighing. Well, fuck, man. Sometimes scales are different. So just in your travel bag, just throw a scale in there. It's flat. It doesn't take much. Just take it with you if you're dieting and you have to stay on point. And then one other thing I figured I'd throw out there too. I've also noticed too, when I've got clients really fluctuating and they swear to me that the diet's on point. And that's the key, man. The diet's got to be point on all this shit before you really start worrying too much. But if everything's on point, I've had people weigh like 3 or 4 times on their scale back to back to back. And if it's off a lot, just try changing the batteries. I've noticed that that's really worked. Change the batteries. And if not, you just got to get a new scale. But a couple other little tips. Anything else you can think of, man, before we get into some of these things that throw the scale off?
No, not yet. I think we're good.
Now so this is the meat and potatoes. This is the fun part. Let's go ahead and start with supplements. I'll throw the first one out, and then you can get to the fun ones. I was sitting here talking about this with Jacob Klessens, our registered dietitian that works with fat muscle, talking about the podcast. And I was like, so what are the ones you think of off the top of your head? And, he named all the ones I had listened. And he was like, creatine. I'm like, shit, man, I forgot about that. So creatine's obviously one that I see a lot of people that they just don't take it. When they do, they'll gain, a pound or two, and it's just cellular water because it pulls water into the cell. It's common. And yeah, the scale goes up, but most people are going to look better. Like 99.9% of people are going to look better because it's water inside the muscle cell. So you'll see it in the gym. You'll see it in your pumps. You'll just look better. Don't let creatine mess with you. You don't have to load it or anything like that. Just I recommend 5 grams a day. But I always warn my clients when they first start. I'm like, yeah, you might see the scale go up a little bit. Let's get to the fun stuff, man. What about some of the super subs? Let's talk about that.
Well, let's talk about, obviously all of them are going to make you gain, but let's talk about, the women's side first. A lot of them are going to add VAR if they're, going to take PEDs. There's water weight that comes with that. I don't care how they tell you it's low, it doesn't convert to estrogen. There is a little water weight that women will hold. Sometimes they'll hold a little bit more in their stomach too, just more water internally. They might feel a little bloated, but the scale is going to go up. And the point of taking it is to see the scale go up. So I'll have clients who start VAR and they're flipping out that they're up 3 pounds the next week. And I'm like, you started a male hormone that makes you gain muscle. Like, what did you think was going to happen? So, you take a performance enhancing drug that drives nitrogen retention and, glycogen retention, you're going to be fuller and you're going to gain weight. That's the point of it. Things like GH, which women will take a lot, is going to do the same thing, and if some days I had people take more, sometimes I had people take less, sometimes off days I don't have them take it at all to remain more insulin sensitive. And so, on those 2 days, maybe I don't have them take it. When they get back on it, you're going to see the scale go up. Now, as far as the harsher drugs, they do the same, but a lot of those are more reserved for men, and men love seeing the scale go up. They don't care if it's up 2 pounds. If they fucking hit some tests, they're like, fuck yeah, man, why is it not at 5?
Right.
So, I don't have that conversation much with men. But yeah, those are the main culprits. And, insulin does the same thing. Aldosterone rises when you use insulin. And insulin also shuttles. It's a shuttling hormone. So you're going to be shuttling more carbohydrates, more nitrogen into the cell. So weight's going to go up. And then as that some days, the water's going to come off better than others. Maybe stress holds it more. But those are the 3 that women may use that are going to cause it. And again, I just don't see too many men caring that the scale's going up.
What about primo when women use that? I don't have a lot of experience with clients doing that. Is it? I heard
It's
it's pretty low.
it's low. I mean, it's the side effects are generally low, although everyone has to try a compound, and I recommend they try them separately because just because it
Yeah.
works for 5 women doesn't mean it doesn't make the next woman's voice start to crack and pop. And
Right.
they need like, okay, well, if that's cracking and popping, that means it's going to drop if I keep this up. But yeah, it's low side effect. It also has to do with dosing. I mean, if you just take 33 mgs 2 times a week, you're probably not going to have many sides. If you start taking 150 mgs, you're probably going to have, a week, you're probably going to have sides. But yeah, any of that's going to go up and down. And then depending like when you dose it. So if you dose it on a Monday and Thursday, those days your weight's probably going to go up more. And then it's going to flush and then go, it's going to yo-yo a little bit on days that you dose it.
Yeah. The other thing too is just a straight HRT dose as well. I know guys will see a rise. You hold a little bit of water, but you're going to
Yeah.
start putting muscle on fast, especially if it's your first time. Um, Women, I generally, whenever women start either the cream or weekly injections, I still see their weight start to climb. It's more of a steady climb though. I would just imagine there's lower water retention just because of the dosage is just so low, 5 mgs a week or whatever it's going to be.
At 5 mgs a week on testosterone, I don't see women hold much water.
Yeah.
When they get above 10 mgs a week, so 15 to 20, and some need that to get the free test cranking, there is water held.
Yeah. What about you brought up one before we started the show. Let's talk about yohimbine. That's one I know that I drop out during peak week if I've got
Yep.
clients taking it.
Yep.
Let's talk about that. It's a damn good fat burner for the stubborn fat, but there's a reason why I drop it out peak week. What are your thoughts on water retention there?
Yeah, so I mean, yohimbine is a great fat burner. It turns off the alpha 2 receptors, which are more prevalent in the more stubborn fat areas, and beta receptors are more prevalent in kind of the easier areas, and that's what clen and ephedrine will turn off. So it's a nice 1-2 punch with something like clen and ephedrine to use yohimbine. You can use it on its own too, though. But I see this more in women that it causes water retention. I know when I used to take it, it causes me a lot of anxiety, so I really don't use it. I'll use it in topical form, like on my lower back and glutes, but that doesn't seem to get too systematic, at least. So if you are someone that has anxiety, use the creams. But many ways, orally, I see it kind of cause some water retention on some people. So if you're like doing a protocol like I do, where I'll have 2 days of clenbuterol, which dries the body out, and then I put them on 2 days of yohimbine, they see the scale go up.
Yeah.
Because of the water retention. But for some reason, women seem to hold more on it than men. But I drop it the final week too, just because I've seen that it can blur legs and different things like that a little bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about some meds here real quick. None in super particular, but then we'll kind of move on to the other stuff. You've got some things, obviously, birth control can cause some issues. Some meds that you might have to take might constipate you, which will cause the scale to go up. We'll talk a little bit about that. Antibiotics. That's whenever you have a client start that. What are you normally seeing?
I always tell them you're going to gain a pound or two.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what it's doing or why. I'm not sure if it's the stress on the digestive tract. I'm not sure if it's stress on a liver, but it causes water retention. People will feel more puffy and they just need to know. And so it might hold, it might go up and down. I've seen it all. But when someone tells me they're going to be on antibiotics, I try to give them a little warning that they will see the scale go up.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to some of these other causes now. We got the kind of the fun ones out of the way. The one of the first ones that I learned way back in the day is 2010 that I really started to understand and then pass on to my clients when I would see it to them was soreness and inflammation and water retention. Kind of where are people seeing that and how are they seeing it on the scale? I mean, this is a common thing because you're training in the gym. Go ahead and talk about that.
I think you see it the most with the bigger body parts. So the bigger the group, the more you're going to see the impact. So if you go do arms, you're not really going to see much generally, unless you're just overdoing everything and the inflammation is built up. But let's say your programming is solid. You're going to see it after legs a lot. It's half your body. You stand, so the gravity hits them. They're sore. So the water kind of stays. It's not like it's flush. It just kind of holds and pools. So that inflammation in the legs is when I see it. So the day after, 2 days after legs, you might see the scale rise, and that's very normal in a lot of people.
Yeah, I tell people all the time whenever I'm kind of picking apart their measurements, their weight, I'll start to ask them some of these questions that we're going over. And one of the first things I ask them is like, "Hey, are you sore?" Especially if they start some new programming. If I put them on something new, or they just came off a deload and then they're back to training real hard, you'll see some soreness drop in. I tell them, I was like, "That's the water being held by the muscle cell trying to repair and recover." And I was like, "So it's a very common thing." Especially when someone's overreaching. Whenever I put a client on a 1 or 2 week hard overreach before a deload, man, I almost always see a 1 pound rise in females, up to 2 pounds in guys. And that's just because inflammation is through the roof, because you're literally beating yourself into the ground on purpose. And then what happens during a deload? Soreness goes away, inflammation drops, and freaking water just falls right off of them. So it's a very, very common thing. I'll throw this next one over to you. This will be a big one, and this will be one that people understand. They come out to our seminar. Let's talk about digestion and bloat. Obviously, I can talk about the real easy part real quick. If you're backed up and not going to the bathroom, obviously you're going to weigh heavier on the scale, right? So that's one of the first things I ask clients as well. Are you backed up? Are you going to the bathroom once a day, or is it only every few days? Well, I see it more in women when they're backed up. Obviously, scale is going to be up, but talk about digestion, bloat, and gut health without, we could do a whole podcast on this, and we have, but where are you seeing that tie into weight?
So, there's a lot of foods that, people may eat that they don't realize is causing them problems. I mean, I did this for years. I'd overeat oats. I was always kind of bloated. Now I barely eat them. If I eat them, it's maybe once or twice a week. So, if you've got someone who's constantly got an irritated stomach, maybe they have a gluten issue, but they're going to bloat more. There's going to be more inflammation. There's going to be more water retention just all around. And, that bloat and that gas is going to weigh something. A lot of times too, if they're not choosing the right foods and the food sits in the belly longer, and that's going to cause weight, which you kind of touched on. It really comes down to food choices too. I've seen people, a lot of times they'll, if I got someone I'm trying to fix SIBO and I've got them on low FODMAP, and they go out and either they try to get gluten-free, or they just forget and their cheat meal has gluten in it, they'll be wrecked for 2 to 3 days and up 2 to 3 pounds from that inflammatory response. Same with dairy and some people too. So inflammation means water retention. And a lot of times that's where that bloat kind of feeling comes from. They'll have it kind of around the stomach, the belly, and things of that nature. So that's going to add to the scale.
Yeah, and I know too, going back to the digestion side of things, when you're backed up, you can't poop really. I'll tell clients all the time, add around 400 or 500 milligrams of magnesium citrate pills. You can take that. You can take it before bed. Magnesium oxide seems to work as well too, but magnesium citrate seems to be the number one. I believe that's what you recommend as well, right?
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just help.
Motility of the lower intestine helps kind of get it rolling. And magnesium actually just relaxes the body in general. So pre-bed, it's really a nice supplement anyways. If someone's like having trouble sleeping, and sometimes that'll be enough just to get them to relax and get those muscles and that tension going.
Yeah. Let's, guys, I don't want you to leave just because we're going to discuss this next one, because it's important, because you're probably going to have to either deal with it with a girlfriend or wife or a client. So we're going to talk about the monthly cycle and kind of what we watch for. So Jason, whenever you're seeing the scale kind of creep up on a female and you start asking them questions, if they're not telling you, when do you start seeing water retention happen? Do you see it happen right before the cycle, during the cycle? I
About a
generally
week before the period on most women.
Yeah. So kind of give everybody a rundown of what you're seeing.
Yeah. Progesterone is going to, spike, and some estradiol, and, so they're going to be bloated. Actually, digestion on some women that I help and work with goes to shit too. And it's kind of just them. There's not a whole lot we've been able to kind of do for it other than, certain food eliminations and things that cause more inflammation. So it's not just terrible during that time, but I see digestion sometimes kind of go to shit during that time. But there's gonna be more water retention and maybe some digestion issues. So you'll see the scale up, anywhere from a half a pound to 3 to 4 pounds on some women. And it's usually about a week out from their period. And so sometimes, yeah, I'll see them complaining about the scale. And then I go, well, are you going to start your period soon? Oh, yeah, I am. I'm like, all right, well, this has happened 100 times in your life.
Yep.
Um, you should know by now that the scale goes up. So let's calm down. And that's probably what this is. Let's give it a week. We're not going to up food. We'll just roll on through here and, get over the hump. And usually then it flushes and everything is kosher.
Yeah. It's, normally I always just tell them we're just going to keep going. There's nothing really that you can do. I know that some want to take diuretics and all this different stuff, and they're trying to fight something that's hormonal. And I remember one time I had a female that was, 50 years old, and she's a close enough friend of mine. She's probably listening to the show actually. And man, she was letting it fuck with her because she was during prep. I said, hold on. You've been having a period for 35 fucking years. Like,
Right.
what's happening, right? And, we just kind of laughed about it, and it kind of got her to settle down. You know how prep is. Like,
Yeah.
prep's stressful, and you're chasing that number that you want to get to. So, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, just so women understand, progesterone is it lowers insulin sensitivity. So, I mean, if you are really good at tracking your cycle and when you're hit luteal phase and progesterone spikes, you could technically pull some carbs, but that gets technical, and you got to be tracking everything and be on your game, and then you can put them back, or you can just kind of get through it and move on. But yeah, it lowers insulin sensitivity, so you got to keep that in mind as that spikes.
I've got a lot of female clients that love taking, and this is why we carry it on our site, your Chaseberry liposomal, that had less cramping and stuff like that. Is that something that you I've seen lower scale increases when they use that.
Yeah. It just makes period symptoms less harsh. It's really good at doing that. It helps regulate progesterone, and for a lot of women who were put on birth control young, it would have been a really good alternative to help just with cramping and ease the period symptoms.
Yeah. I can't remember the price off the top of my head, but it's dirt cheap. Like I think every female that has a cycle should take that. You can find it anywhere. It's New Ethics Chaseberry liposomal. So let's talk about probably the most important one that I learned over the years was low sleep. I started to see a correlation between when my clients would sleep in on the weekends and they would hit new lows, and then they get up Monday morning to go to work and they wouldn't be able to sleep in, and their scale weight would always be higher on a Monday. And back when I first started, I thought, they're just eating shit on the weekend. So I'd ask them, are you cheating on the weekend? But this happened to everybody in prep, the whole 9 yards. And that's where I start to learn, when you get less sleep, your weight is always higher. How much of this conversation do you have with clients? It's a big one with me and mine.
Yeah, I've had it too. And, I think there's two things going on. One thing I think that's going on is there's just less time to flush the body. So, if you sleep 8 hours and then the next day you only sleep 5, you're just not as dehydrated. You're not as dry when you wake up. The second thing is if it keeps happening, and you're just getting poor sleep, you lose insulin sensitivity.
Yep.
And so the carbs that you are eating now are circulating more in the bloodstream. You're going to be more puffy, and you might hold more water all day then, as you're in essence, basically, cranking out more insulin and, potentially having more circulating blood sugar. So there's two things going on there that cause that. But yeah, I see that a lot. And sleep is one of those things that if you get more of it, usually fat loss is easier. And again, inflammation lowers, insulin sensitivity improves, you got more time to flush, all of those things.
Yeah, I've went on record. I made a post, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago that said my number one fat loss stall breaker is getting people to sleep more. It's always the number one. It's always the number one thing. Even if someone's getting decent sleep and they're in a prep and they're kind of stalled out and drops aren't working, I get them to sleep in on the weekends. I'm like, don't set your alarm. Don't do shit. Like get out of bed when your body's ready to get out of bed. Man, I see people drop like crazy. Like some of the bigger guys, I'll see a 2 pound drop just over the weekend. Female drop that pound. And then what happens after? It gets people motivated, stress lowers. Like when people aren't getting enough sleep, you're talking about your body just staying beat up. It's never recovering. So cortisol stays high. And then, like Jason said, insulin sensitivity goes to shit because of that. So it's really it's kind of the gateway to a shit show is what low sleep is. So to me, it's one of the more important ones, which leads us to, man, probably the biggest one, I think, and that's cortisol and stress. You and I did a deep dive and really did a good job of breaking that down. If you guys go back and listen to the archives, episode 2, we did deep dive on cortisol and stress. But talk about what you're seeing with clients whenever you just see the scale go up, not necessarily from low sleep, but just stress in general. And you've been there yourself. Obviously, you just prepped for a show, and it's just a matter of a handful of weeks, and had a divorce going on at the time, like a lot of stressful things and move. What are you seeing when clients are going through that just on the scale?
Well, it's gonna ebb and flow with the stress. So that means it's gonna rise and lower. When you're stressed, you're cranking out adrenaline, you're cranking out norepinephrine, you're cranking out cortisol, and all these things are designed to liberate fatty acids and carbs into the bloodstream. And it's fine as you need them, but again, we're not running from the tiger all the time, so it starts to build up, and that's why you're getting you're losing insulin sensitivity. That's why you're getting that extra water being held. So it kind of ebb and flows with the stress. So, if someone's stuck in a stress period, I might pull cardio, I might up carbs. I talk about getting more sleep, and I'll add Cordy's. And, I do that a lot during prep, and I'll just have someone kind of say, fuck it for 3 days. I mean, they got to track their macros, but I give them way more carbs and just let them kind of chill out. And it always helps get the body going again.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add to that. I think everyone should go back and re-listen to episode 2. I listened to it and we did the damn show. It's just really, really good information. Here's one that I see actually happen a lot. Two different things happen with low sodium or seeing a spike in sodium. I know a lot of old school hardcore dieters back in the day were like prep on low sodium, right? That was kind of the big thing, which is a huge fucking mistake. You and I have always been high on sea salt. I remember when I first started, Mark turned me on to sea salt. You were already turned on to it. But I see a lot of clients that come to me that they're eating low sodium, and when I check with them, especially if they're coming to me close to a peak week and I haven't been doing their prep, and all of a sudden they start adding sodium in, they're going to hold more water naturally because it pulls water into the body, into the cell, and stuff like that. Or if someone goes out and they have a big meal and it has a lot of sodium in it because it's cooked somewhere else, like maybe in the off season, they're going to see a spike. It's just water. It's going to fall off. But one thing that I wanted you to go ahead and explain, we can both kind of break this down if you want. People that stay low sodium for so long, they see an issue with aldosterone, the hormone that causes retention. Talk about that a little bit, because I know we used to see that during peak weeks, but I'm seeing it in people that are low sodium year round.
Yeah. So when you are low sodium, aldosterone goes up, and it's basically designed to basically then retain sodium so that you're not continually losing it. It's an important electrolyte. So, that's why during peak week back in the day, when people would pull sodium, if they did it too long, that aldosterone would have a chance to kind of pick up and store, will not keep you from peeing out extra, and you would kind of get puffy and retain finally. So we all learned that you keep water high until, you can trick the body for a minute, but not forever. You keep sodium in and you keep that aldosterone low. So, now we know, maybe you can switch to sips for maybe 12 hours is all the window you have. And then, that's a problem. Or same with the sodium. You might be able to pull it for a little bit, but a lot of times you're going to have a better physique just leaving it in. Keep that aldosterone low, keep the water cranking, keep sodium in. So, yeah, I mean, what I find is, because I use so much sodium in my daily life, when I go eat at a restaurant, even if it's super salty, I'm barely up in weight the next day. I don't fluctuate much. So if you're someone who's a little more low sodium dieter, and then your coach gives you a cheat meal, or you just you have your off season free meal, that's going to affect you more. And I will say this: there are some people that's more sodium sensitive. I mean, I've seen people who I have used sea salt daily, and they'll still go have a cheat meal out at a restaurant. They're up 5 pounds. They're just really sodium sensitive, and those people do exist. So
Yeah. I tell people, I say, listen, you're probably going to see a pound or two increase. Just ride it out. Your body will normalize, but it's, somebody that's been low sodium for a while. I see about a week and a half before their body kind of chills out, and then it drops back down to where it needs to be. Whenever somebody comes off a big meal and you want to rid bloat, what do you like to recommend as far as like, water intake and stuff like that to kind of flush it off? Do you recommend anything?
I mean, I'm a big proponent in just because you fucked up once, don't fuck up your diet more. I've
Right.
always been like that. So I just always recommend like getting back at it. I have had people do some hit cardio if it's really bad, for a few days, because you're burning glycogen when you do that. So, that bloat's going to come down, especially if they're in a situation where their ankles are really puffy. And like, I feel like it's an unhealthy situation. Blood pressure's up. But, if it's just from a free meal where they're like, I kind of went a little overboard, usually they spike 2 and they're up 3.5. I don't do much. I just get them back on everything, make sure they're flushing with a ton of water, and it's fine. I just don't like screwing up more days of meal plans and macros. I also feel like, you can get into eating disorders then, where they're like, oh, well, I ate an extra 600 calories and coach just told me to cut 30 carbs. So if I eat an extra 1,000 calories, I can just cut 60. And he had me do like 2 hits. So I'll just do like 4 hits. And then the next week, well, I need to add 2,000 calories. So now I'm going to, and it kind of gets into this kind of binge and purge thing. And I just don't like to create those habits. So I've never been one to really kind of do a whole lot. But, if it's a danger zone area where the ankles are puffy, blood pressure is high, then yeah, extra hits and flushing with water, things like that. But I don't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, normally I'll just tell people just increase your water an extra liter or two, a couple extra shakers of water a day. That'll help flush it in a day or two. And then we'll see what it looks like on your next check-in a few days later. So no big deal. I'm okay with some natural diuretics. I don't tell my clients to do it, but I know myself with blood pressure, I try to get my sodium sky high. So whenever I do once a week, go have something, especially if it's like, if I put some soy sauce on my chicken and rice or something like that, I'll hold, and I hold it a lot in my face. I just hate it. So I might hit some dandelion root or something real natural and mild. It just helps me start moving that water that day. But other than that, I'm with you, man. Just getting back at it. And that's pretty much it, man. There's one more thing I can think of that I didn't add to the show notes, but and I know we both see this, but when someone's been dieting real low carb for a long time, and then all of a sudden, I know sometimes what you like to do is you like to, when you do a reset, you like to lower someone's carbs, and you'll just throw the carbs right back in, lower the fats, and you'll go back. There's been times where you go ahead and ramp it up really fast, or during a diet phase. Are you seeing a lot of water retention when you move carbs back in that fast? I know I like to move them in a little slower. Not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying I don't see the big increases in weight. What are you seeing on your end?
I'm really not, because a lot of times when I'm doing this, someone's been dieting, 11, 12 weeks. And so let's say they're at 100 carbs and I double it to 200. I usually pull fats down some.
Yeah.
Protein may even come down. Just depends where I want the calories at. But they're so depleted, and I really don't see much of a weight spike, honestly. I really don't. Even with the rest, even with, doing nothing, the body really wants all that and seems to take care of it. Now there might, some people might come back to me up a pound, but I'm not even worried about it because of the benefits of the cortisol drop, what it does with leptin and ghrelin, and just everything of that nature, and the, metabolic spike. So yeah, I give warnings that there might be a spike in weight, but honestly most of the time there's just not.
Yeah, they're zooming, they're moving when you drop everything else and raise the carbs. Yeah, I like it. All right, man, this has been a fun episode. I think there's a lot of people that will gain some good insight here, whether they're coaches, trainers, or whatnot. We are somewhere close to 400 reviews, and I know Jeff over there at the Excellence Cartel, Jeff Black's like, fuck, Gorman still got more, so we do have more, but we need that shit to go up. We haven't had a lot of reviews lately. So if you guys don't mind, we just
Yeah,
ask that you tell some friends.
if you're a new listener, take the time, drop us a review. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we really do. So, man, I hope we see a bunch of people out at the seminar in Tampa. I know we will, but I'm looking forward. You know, we just opened up the ticket sales and we've got them rolling. But you know, let's sell this out. And let's go have some fun. Get some sun down in March. Fuck this cold. So,
Yeah.
all right, guys, we will be back soon. I know we've got a couple other muscle building mistakes to cover. We've got some fat loss mistakes to cover in our next couple episodes, and then I need to get with you, and we need to put together an estrogen deep dive. That's been long overdue. You guys did a really good one on the Excellence Cartel. You had a guest over there. I figure we go ahead and break it down and talk about it for natural versus enhanced, and kind of do it in our format over here. So that will be coming soon. You got anything else for anybody, man, before we get off?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we covered this pretty in depth, really.
Yeah, man. All right. It's been a good show. We will catch you guys later. For myself and Jason, you guys stay safe.
See ya.